Hello and welcome to a look at Winter Super Sports 92 for the Amiga, a game that was released by Flair software. I covered the Commodore 64 version of this game about a year ago, and I feel that enough time has passed that I can justify covering the Amiga version as well. The foundation is the same. You can play 1 to 6 players, and you have 8 events to compete in. Unlike the Commodore 64 version of this game, the events are, I'd say, more unique than they were in that particular version, and as such you could perhaps imagine that this automatically makes it a better game than the Commodore 64 version, but it does have its own batch of issues. We start off with some downhill, which, repeating myself from the Commodore 64 version, is fast-paced slalom. You go down a hill at a high speed, navigating gates and trying not to smack into anything that doesn't look like snow, because that will usually cause you to crash. Your performance is rated by a point score, and of course it is based around the time it takes you to complete the course, but also any penalties that you have gained while trying to complete the course. Down to accelerate, side to side to change direction, and hope that the controls are not being super sensitive, which they tend to be. So we get an evaluation and get the option to replay the event if we want to, and just like the Commodore 64 version, we can do that as many times as we want to, which we don't want to. Hill jumping. You have to select a competitor, and I just selected whoever I felt looked most goofy, least goofy, whatever. But you put on a pair of ice skates and then you start racing another competitor while jumping a single stack of hail bales. Hay bales, I keep calling them hail bales. I did that in Commodore 64 version as well. It must be fun for me to say. But anyway, rhythmically side to side, make sure to go fully left and fully right until the skater's legs cannot go further out, and then reverse the movement, and that will build up speed, and then you hit the fire button to jump the hay bales. And then you completely and utterly maul the computer, because it offers about as much challenge as if it wasn't there. And yeah, I don't know why you wouldn't just get to race by yourself when you're playing by yourself. But I will get back to that a bit later when I do a coverage of the general gameplay and all that kind of stuff. The points we gained here are being tallied on top of the previous points gained, and we move on to the next event, which is bobsleigh. In this particular event, you put yourself into a box that's been specifically designed with speed on ice in mind, and hurl yourself down to this track, which is consisting of bends and turns and intersections and crossovers, and no, maybe not. Whatever the case, you slide down the track, navigating the bends and turns, and try not to flip over, which of course is rather unhealthy for the occupants of the bobsleigh, and it doesn't do you any good in regards to trying to earn any points of any kind. This particular event and its sister event I knocked on the Commodore 64 version for being extremely boring. And while this is not necessarily super exciting, I can't help but feel that both this and the sister event should be played after you have taken some seasickness tablets in case you have motion sickness tendencies. I do not have motion sickness tendencies in any way, shape or form, but I was finding myself feeling slightly nauseous going through both this and its sister event. But I managed to complete the race without crashing and gain some points, and we can move on to the next event. Slalom, or giant slalom as it is. Very much like downhill, of course. I mean, those kind of events are very, very similar, but unlike the Commodore 64 version, in this version there's like a distinct difference between the downhill and slalom sections. First and foremost, instead of having gates, you have individual flags. The deal is the same. Left around the blue flags and right around the red flags, and then get down to the bottom of the course as quickly as you can. One interesting observation I made in the process of making this video was that for some bizarre reason the point score you gain for this event is based on your finishing time. You can have as many penalties as you want, you are not getting your point score based on the time penalty added on top of it. This is a bit of an oversight, I think. But we can move on to the next event, the Luge, I think it's called, which of course is the sister event of bobsleigh. Because the gameplay is very similar to that of a bobsleigh, I'm going to use this section and try and cover the technical aspects, or at least parts of them. From a graphical point of view, I think this game works okay. I would say for an Amiga game, I don't think it's particularly special, but at least it seems a bit more lively than the previous version I covered of this game, which doesn't really take much effort. The graphical style is distinct for the different event types, and slalom, downhill, or whatever else there might be of such events look very, very similar. The bobsleigh and luge event looks very, very similar, and the two skating events obviously look very, very similar. And funnily enough, the Commodore 64 version, I applauded the speed skating and rail jumping sections for being graphically somewhat at least impressive, whereas I, in this particular version, find both of them to be incredibly wonky. It is some sort of polygon kind of thing, and it feels like the polygons are not properly connected, which means that the skaters look weird. Overall, I'm not unhappy with the graphical style, but I'm not super impressed by it either. Speed skating, by the way, it's the same as bale jumping, but we're not jumping in the bales, so that's the difference. When it comes to the sound side of things, at least in this particular version, the sound effects are passable and not overly annoying. It doesn't sound like engines going. You actually get a sense of cruising around, skating around, jumping around, falling around, whatever, on snow and ice. And certain sound effects are more or less annoying. We will get to one of them in a bit. But by and large, I'm not unhappy with the sound effects, even though I'm not particularly, again, impressed by them. The same goes with the music, to be honest. The music is not bad. It's very, very fitting for the game and game type, but it doesn't stand out as being something you will remember after you stop playing the game. Ski giants, a short stretch of downhill bit that you have to navigate and avoid, go around, pass gates, and then get absolutely hammered by the computer opponent. But the controls are by and large okay, but in the skills sections they can feel incredibly slippery. You barely touch your joystick sideways, and your skier is more or less trying to fly off the side of the screen, which doesn't make it particularly enjoyable to play. We are reaching the final event of this game, which is a skidoo. And yes, it is still a very fun word to say. In this event, you have two individuals jumping on a skidoo each and then racing down a track, and whoever completes four laps first is the winner. This particular event suffers from the same issues as the Commodore 64 version, whereas you don't have a full view of the track, which makes navigating it a bit wonky, but at least you have a minimap to aid navigation. More importantly, your computer opponent is not racing like Michael Schumacher on Overdrive, so you actually have a chance to win, because it does screw up from time to time. Let's conclude regarding this game. I'm fully aware that I'm not doing myself any favors by playing this game by myself. It is definitely a game type that needs to be played with other players to fully enjoy. But there's some issues. First and foremost, the collision detection is absolutely atrocious. Especially in the skiing events, sometimes you can ski through a flag without crashing, and other times you go 6 yards around it and still crash for some odd reason. In this particular event, sometimes you can vertically cut corners, and other times you get stuck on an obstacle that's not there. Yeah. I understand the split screen in this event because you are racing, but when you are playing by yourself, I see no reason why you should have to have your screen cut in half, especially on the skiing events. It would be nice to be able to focus on your own skiing instead of seeing some computer master skier race down the track without making any mistakes of any kind. But ultimately, that is more or less nitpicking and part of my wish list, which of course will never be fulfilled because it is an old game. It lacks humor just like the Commodore 64 version. The presentation is a bit more funky and a bit more exciting, I suppose. And while I slammed the Commodore 64 version as being as average can be, I think this version deserves a somewhat higher rating. I'm just not sure exactly how much of a high rating. And I'm going to leave you on that note, so thanks for watching, take care, see you next time, bye bye for now.